Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to another video. In this one, I asked for your questions on Twitter for a Q&A, and we got a bunch of questions. I think I captured all of them. If I missed any, I really apologize. I did get a decent amount of them, so I'm going to go through all of them now and just give you my thoughts on everything that you guys asked. Some of them are related to Gotham Knights, some to Batman Arkham, some are about life and therapy and, different questions. So there are a lot of different things in here, and I'm just going to go through it all with you now, starting with Mario, the first question of the episode, and he asks, which Talon will we see in the game? He's referring to Gotham Knights, Calvin Rose or William Cobb. My answer to that is yes. I think we'll see a lot of Talons, not just Calvin Rose and William Cobb, but actually maybe even Bruce Wayne will be a Talon. I don't know, but I think there's going to be way more than two of them, as we've seen in the scene where all of the coffins are hanging. That's because there are like a bunch of different Talons. It's not just one of them, but we will see. There could be one main one. You could be right. It could be one of the two, but that's my personal thoughts. Robert Kelly with question number 2. Do you think the Matt Reeves trilogy will introduce Dick Grayson for the first time? First, then we will get the Nightwing movie because the movie was put on hold because of the Matt Reeves trilogy. I think that there are different reasons why that movie has been on hold. It's same with the Batgirl, actually, is not so much anything else, like any projects interfering, although that's part of it. Could be. I think it more has to do with the fact that WB is trying to get their cards in order. They're trying to figure out what they want to do. And going into the future, HBO Max is going to be great for DC movies because it's going to allow them to experiment and make new movies and try new things, because it's not the risk. It's not the same risk of like, oh, we're going to put $150 million into a Batgirl movie. If it doesn't make money, then we're screwed. Now it's like they're playing for the HBO Max investment, so I think that changes things. So I think we'll see a Nightwing and Batgirl movie in the next 5 years. Thanks for the question, Robert. Next question is from Logan. What are your predictions for the next WB Montreal game? So he's referring to the fact that 2 games are in development at WB Games Montreal. One, obviously, is Gotham Knights, and the other we don't know about. So it's tricky to say. Part of me really wants it to be a Batman game. I know that everybody's going to hate that. They don't want that. But I feel like a lot of people would love a Batman Arkham Origins 2 or something like that, or a follow-up to Arkham Knight. Of course, they were developing an Arkham Knight sequel, by the way. I mean, that's literally what the Damian Wayne game was. It was literally an Arkham Knight sequel. It was a continuation of the legacy of that game. What happens after Batman dies. And that's what they're exploring actually in Gotham Knights 2. Oddly enough, it's just in a different universe. But what happens after Batman dies? Well, Damian Wayne probably becomes Batman. So, I don't know. It's interesting. Maybe they're going to fuse that thread into Gotham Knights, because Patrick Redding has teased that there are plot elements from the comics that you wouldn't expect to see in the game that are going to be in the game, which to me makes me think of Battle for the Cowl, and that there's going to be some moments of, okay, of these 4 heroes, one of them is going to try to become Batman and be like the person that leads the Bat family. And I think there might be some debate over that. One thing that's countervailing against that is obviously one of the big aspects of Battle for the Cowl is that you have some people that believe in killing and think that capital punishment is good, and then you have other people in the Bat family that are against capital punishment. And so there's that divide that kind of fuels some of the debate in Battle for the Cowl. Not all of it, but that's part of it. And I think that in this case, Red Hood already doesn't kill. He's already on that page of like, oh, I'm using non-lethal stuff. So he's already had that transformation. Because when Red Hood comes out of the Lazarus pit, he's like fucking bloodthirsty. He just wants to kill everybody in sight. He's pissed off, right? So he's clearly past that. He's already a member of the Bat family. He's adopted the values and morals of Bruce Wayne and Barbara Gordon and Dick Grayson, who are vehemently anti-killing. So that makes me kind of think against the Battle for the Cowl stuff, but they could have it in a different way. We've already seen that this game is sort of reinventing the wheel on a lot of different things when it comes to the Bat family. So I think they're going to adopt Battle for the Cowl in a slightly different way, but it's the perfect game to do it in. And so that doesn't answer your question at all, Logan. I don't know why I'm rambling about this. My predictions for the next WB Montreal game, again, I would love to see Batman. Probably isn't that. Probably could be Green Arrow. I think I made a video about this, but Green Arrow is certainly possible. The Flash is probably the most likely, because they had already actually been developing a Flash game about a decade ago, and it was looking really good, by the way, but that was canceled. So I'm going to go with the Flash. That's my prediction, but we'll see. I'm probably wrong, Logan. Orleans2299. By the way, in the comments below, let me know what game you'd like to see to be their second game. Orleans2299 says, my question to you is, what is that apocalyptic Batman game, and do you have more pics of it or any info? I promise with my Arkham soul I won't tell fucking anybody or anything. Fuck all of them, JK. Okay, well, maybe this wasn't intended for the Q&A. I'm sorry if it wasn't, but I've lumped it in here anyway, because it sounds like you were trying to, like, have you give me the personal information over DM, which I wouldn't have done. I'm sorry to tell you. Because basically, I don't know that much more than, because the pictures all leaked. So, like, you guys saw a lot of the same images I made, and that's when I made that video about the Batman game in development, and I described the pictures, and a lot of people pointed out, like, yeah, you know, those were the pictures that I described, which is true. Like, a lot of the ones that I described were leaked. I don't know if it was by the same person that supplied the pictures or what have you. They weren't supplied to me. It was supplied indirectly to me, but anyway. So I think that I don't really have that much more information besides the fact that it was only about half the images. There were some that were not shown. I don't think we saw the White Rabbit image. I don't think we did see Two-Face. I'd have to think about it again, but there were some images that were not leaked that may never see the light of day. But yeah, in terms of information, I never really had that much information. I just, you know, we got some of the images and you could kind of confer what the game's about. It's like, oh, well, there's Damian Wayne in the Batman suit. Okay. And then you could see the skyscraper and you can see that Wayne Tower is destroyed. And you're like, okay, well, this is like kind of apocalyptic. And then there's, you know, writing on the wall that I described that was like, I can't remember what it says. You guys will remember better than me, but it's like super dystopian and apocalyptic, like, we're all gonna die, or like there's nothing here for any of us, or something like that. Also, I need to turn off the heat 1 second. But yeah, Orleans, I mean, that was pretty much it on the Batman game, which will never see the light of day anyway, so honestly, unfortunately, it doesn't matter. Joshua Counts says, or asks, is it wrong to say that Gotham Knights looks like a ripoff of Ubi Division 2, but only with superheroes? I hope they hit unlike Destiny 2 ripoff in Avengers. I like the gameplay, I think it has potential, but I need to see a little more. Yeah, Joshua, this is one of the concerns that I express more with Avengers. I'm not super familiar with the Division 2, although there is certainly those co-op aspects, those drop-in co-op aspects that are a bit similar. It's just a broader shift in the gaming industry, and my point is just that you have to be cognizant of what has worked in the superhero video game space. Co-op multiplayer type games have not been particularly successful. Compared to Batman Arkham and Spider-Man PS4, which have been the two best-selling video games in the last 10 years, superhero video games. And then you get back into Injustice 2, and it's like, oh, that's medium tier, hasn't sold super well. And then you get into Marvel's Avengers, that sold horribly. So it's like, the only point that I'm making is just be cognizant of what the superhero fan community has already showed that they like with their dollars. Now, this is not to say that they can't try to evolve the model. This is what they're trying to do. They're trying to evolve it, and they're trying to improve on what Marvel's Avengers, or not trying to improve on Marvel's Avengers. They're trying to do a better iteration of some of the gameplay elements that were in Marvel's Avengers, like co-op and like some of these things. So, Joshua, I'm very enthusiastic and optimistic about Gotham Knights. I do not think that it will be anywhere near as bad as Marvel's Avengers, but it's important to note that Marvel's Avengers was very bad, right? So, I think that they should avoid as much of those gameplay elements as possible because we've already tried it and it doesn't work and nobody liked it. Rose, Q&A. What was the first Batman comic you ever read? Also love your channel, by the way. So the first Batman comic I ever read, so I just found it here. The first Batman comic that I ever read was Legends of the Dark Knight, which actually came about because of the 1989 Batman film. And then it was it wasn't based off of it. It definitely was its own story, but Legends of the Dark Knight #1 actually retold the origin of Batman. So like, it's a great starting off point. Again, it's if you were to go back and read it, it's probably a bit dated, but Chuck Dixon did contribute to it. Alan Grant did, Dennis O'Neil, Grant Morrison, so Bill Willingham. So lots of like really, really high level comic book names were involved in the project, and it's a good run. I've read pretty much every issue in it, but that's what actually got me into it. I remember I got a couple of comics in my stocking when I saw The Dark Knight 2008. And then that year for Christmas, I got a bunch of Batman-related stuff, and then I started reading comics. So 2008, it's 2021, 12 years ago. I'm 23 now, so it was around 10 or 11 when I really got into Batman comics. Prior, I was all into Spider-Man comics, which is weird because typically it's like your first comic book love is like the one that you are for the rest of your life, but I'm definitely a Batman guy. You know, Spider-Man was my first superhero comic book love, and that sounds kind of suspect, but you know what I mean. Spider-Man was the first one I got really into. But I'm a Batman guy for life. I mean, there's no doubting that Batman is my guy. So thank you for the question. Let me switch back. There we go. Thank you for the question, Rose. Next question is from Shatterpoint. Have you seen the logo I made you? If not, it's in your DMs. Shatterpoint, I have not. I will take a look at that. Thank you. Unless I have and don't remember, but I don't think I have, so I'll take a look at that. Thank you, Shatterpoint. Knighthood asks, which Azrael would you prefer in Gotham Knights? So I would definitely say that John Paul Valley Jr. is my favorite Azrael. Obviously, he is the original. I haven't read, and I'm not that familiar with any of the other ones, if I'm being completely honest with you. But yeah, John Paul Valley Jr. is typically the one that's portrayed. I believe that's the one in the Arkham games. So that's the Azrael that I would like to see in Gotham Knights, if there is one at all. But I certainly hope that there is. Degenerate asks, what's up, by the way, Degenerate? When did you realize you wanted to be a YouTuber? I actually tweeted about this a couple weeks ago, but I was inspired by a YouTuber named Xjaws. He was a Call of Duty YouTuber. Many of you might be familiar with him, but he was my hero. I love that dude. He really inspired me, and basically I watched every single one of his videos. I was obsessively into Call of Duty videos and Modern Warfare 2 videos, and I think he went through a similar trajectory that a lot of other YouTubers did, where like he was also big into Call of Duty, and then he kind of outgrew it and wasn't so into it anymore. Thankfully, with comic books, like it's so easy to be a fan when you're an adult. You're not likely to really outgrow it. If you're a huge comic book fan in your teens, you know it's pretty unlikely that you'll be like, I don't like Batman anymore. When you're in your early 20s, it's very much so made for all audiences now. It might be different than it was in the 50s or 60s, but certainly now it's not made for children. It's made for, if anything, it's targeted more towards adults, actually, with how like violent and dark some of the stories are in it, which has pretty much been revolutionized since The Killing Joke in 1988, which I'm about to make a podcast length video on, by the way, so look forward to that. The first episode of the new series, it's going to be called Superhero Analysis, where I'm going to be fully analyzing stories from Batman and DC Comics lore and movies and that type of thing. So it's going to be great, and I'm really, really looking forward to that. But thank you for the question, Degenerate. But Xjaws really inspired me, and that was back in 2009? A long time ago, well over a decade ago. Wesley Dark Knight 15 asks, some college career tips. Well, Wesley, there's a lot of different ways I could answer this question. When it comes to college tips, I would definitely go in with a plan of what you want to do. If you don't have a plan, I would not go necessarily to university right away. I personally went to community college first, and that was the best decision I ever made because it helped me avoid debt, and I was able to cash flow college by just living with my parents. And as a result of that, I wouldn't have been able to do that if I paid $25,000 a year for my first year, which is just your gen eds anyway. It doesn't really provide any value to go to university to do them, besides to like party and have fun, which is fine if you can afford it. But if you can't afford it, I wouldn't recommend it. So that's one thing I'd be cognizant of, is just also, what is your end goal? Your end goal is probably going to change a lot. When I went into college, all I wanted to do was, go to Harvard and study political science. That was my goal and ambition, but things change, and now I'm much more into social media and YouTube and all that type of thing, and I love what I do here on this channel and everything. But everybody has a different path, and I say that to say that your path is probably going to change, but it's good to at least come up with one and be thinking about it pretty aggressively. It's fine to go in without having a plan. Most people don't. Most people don't have a plan, but you want to kind of come up with a direction of where you're going here. Otherwise, it might not be worth it to even be there. If you're really not going there for any reason besides like, your friends go and this is the next step to get a good career, it's like, well, that's not necessarily true. And if you're looking at your long-term financial prospects, here's an important thing to consider: the power of compound interest. Okay, so let's say that I put in $2,000 in mutual funds from the age of 19 to 26. So at age 19, I put in 2,000. When I'm 20, I put in 2,000. When I'm 21, I put in 2,000. If the stock market maintains the same rate of return that it's been having for the last several decades, when you retire, just off of a couple grand that you put into the stock market, that will compound and turn into $1.5 million when you retire at age 65. Why is this the case? Well, the reason why is because investing is a long-term game. It's a get-rich-slow scheme, as Woody's Gamertag, another Call of Duty YouTuber, called it. And the 16,000 that you initially put in between the ages of 19 and 26, or whatever it is, I think it's maybe 8,000 actually, whatever it is, like that amount that you put in, now this is killing me, 2,000 times 6 years, 12,000, sorry. So over the $12,000 that you put in, essentially the first couple of years, it's already making, returns on your investment. The size of your investment is growing, and also it's paying dividends, and the dividends are reinvested into the account. So your money compounds and makes money on top of that money, and then that money makes money on top of the money on top of the money, and then it just snowballs down this hill to wealth. And that's if you only put in 12 grand. Imagine if when you're 18 you put in 20 grand or 30 grand or whatever. And that's hard to do if you're paying for college. And that's the path that I took, by the way. Like, if I had not gone to college and I had just become a YouTuber when I turned 18 full time, probably it would have been better for my financial future, because to pay to go to UNC, I think I paid them in total around 50 grand, which is a lot of money. I've been very thankful for, YouTube to actually have like something that can pay a salary to, like let me live and eat and, pay for college and that type of thing. But also that 50 grand, by the way, is literally saving everything that I made since I started YouTube from 14. So it's not like I make like 50,000 a year from YouTube or anything like that. Certainly not like that. But, I just saved up everything. I didn't buy anything. When I was 14, what the fuck do I have to buy besides food? I would go to McDonald's or Chick-fil-A sometimes, but I wouldn't buy clothes. I'd buy video games occasionally, which is right off on my taxes. So I say all of this to say that it's, when it comes to your career and college, like being in a financially stable situation gives you freedom to not have to necessarily have to be in a working situation that you don't want to be in, right? And if you know that, I have this retirement account with like, whatever, $3 million in it because I started when I was young, and it's just compounded and become this crazy account, like more than I would ever make in your life. Like, it's going to be hard for most people to make $4 million. But if you put aside a reasonable amount of money starting at a young age, you actually can do it. But the key is time and expediency. And I say this because a lot of you guys are younger than me. And it really is a game of time, because the more time that you have, the stronger compounding interest is. And you can look into that and research it. I recommend, if you want to research Dave Ramsey, he talks about this quite a bit. There are a lot of other people that discuss the power of compounding interest. And it looks like my computer screen has gone off because I've talked about this topic way too long. But yeah, that's the main thing that I wanted to go over there when it comes to, college and career, is try to come up with a plan as quickly as possible, follow what you're passionate about, and then also start early on investing, Wesley. And I think you'll be in a good spot. Dan, what got you into Batman? The Dark Knight, 2008. I saw the film. I was mesmerized. I was literally blown away, Dan. It changed my life forever. It changed the trajectory of my life, that film. There were two things in my life that really changed the trajectory of my life, because this YouTube channel has changed my life. It's changed everything about my career trajectory. It's changed everything about what I do, why I like, everything about where I am in life. And The Dark Knight from Christopher Nolan changed my life. It made me a Batman fanatic. And it wasn't like I watched the movie and immediately I was a huge Batman fan. Obviously, that's not how it works. But The Dark Knight started me down the rabbit hole, the Batman rabbit hole. And like the previous question asked, I'm like, okay. And then I started reading Dark Knight Returns. I started reading Legend of the Dark Knight, I meant to say. And then I started reading Batman Hush, and then Year One and whatever. And then it's like, holy shit, this is amazing. Then I started playing the Batman Arkham games. That really changed my life. And then again, X-Jaws made me want to become a YouTuber. And like all of those things together, it's really just a couple factors in your life that I think can really impact the trajectory and course of your life and inspire you. So I think that Chris Nolan, The Dark Knight, really changed my life, and I would say that X-Jaws did too, as a YouTuber. Okay, Daily Arkhamverse and Gotham Knights memes. This is a funny question. Can you rate this account 1 to 10? I will give it a 12, Arkhamverse. For those of you unaware, he posts Arkham memes and Gotham Knights memes. He, covers news and all those sort of things. I mean, just look at his AVI. It's so funny. I highly recommend you follow him. I'd retweet him quite a bit, and he's awesome. Absolutely awesome. So 12 out of 10. 12 out of 10. Okay, Wesley, didn't you just have a question? Yes, you did, Wesley. Okay, that's all right. What Batman comics would you recommend to get into, and how did you do it? So I've been a big advocate and proponent. Like, there are so many videos on YouTube, and I'm probably going to make a video on this when it comes to getting into Batman comics. There's this thought process that people should read in chronological order, which, by the way, would look like, okay, at first you're going to read Batman Year One, and then you're going to read Long Halloween, and then you're going to read Dark Victory, and then you're going to read and then it goes down the line, and then make 2/3 through, you're going to read Hush, and then towards the very end, you're going to read The Dark Knight Returns, and whatever. And then The Killing Joke is somewhere in the middle. Like, there's this whole order that people want you to go in, and I don't agree with that at all. I think that rather than following some timeline or canon, because, by the way, comic book writers don't really give a shit about what other people wrote. Do you think when Alan Moore was writing The Killing Joke, he gave a shit about what anybody else had done with Batman? No, he didn't care. He was doing whatever the hell he wanted to do. And there was this whole thought process that you can never reveal the Joker and who he actually is as a person. You just can't do it. You can't talk about his backstory. You know, the most that we had gotten was his name was Jack Napier up until 1988. With a few exceptions. You got to go back to the 50s. I remember there was a few stuff. But anyway, that was the hegemony. That was the overarching consensus in the community, is that you cannot really delve into this topic. It is a secret. And you know what he did in 1988? He's like, fuck it. We're going into his full backstory. We're telling everything about his history. He had a wife. He had a kid. He was a comedian and blah, blah, blah. Like, he just made all that stuff up. So I think that to try to put them in conversation with one another, to try to compare, like, you know, Batman Year One to The Killing Joke to The Dark Knight Returns. You think fucking The Dark Knight Returns give, like, it's so in left field compared to the other stuff. So I think that really what you should do is you should read the plot synopses of all of these stories of, again, Batman Hush, Long Halloween, Killing Joke, like, and realize and try to think, what stories would you enjoy the most? The Killing Joke is just, doesn't matter what type of content you're into, it's a good one to start with. It's iconic. It is the best Batman graphic novel ever made. Alan Moore, who wrote the book, says that it's not that good, but I'd beg to differ. I think it's really quite good. And then I look at, okay, what type of stories are you into? Are you into more like action-packed blockbuster superhero stories? Then I'd read Batman Hush. Are you more into thriller detective noir stories? Like, are you really excited for Matt Reeves' Batman? Then I'd read Long Halloween. Are you really into Batman v Superman? Then I'd read The Dark Knight Returns. Like, there's so many different avenues to go in, and I would not read chronologically because, I'm sorry to say this, people are going to disagree with me. Batman Year One is a bit overrated, and you already know the story, and it's not going to be something that you read, probably. Like, let's say you've never read a Batman comic, but you've played the Arkham games, you've seen the movies, you've done all this stuff. I don't think you're going to read Batman Year One and be like, fuck yeah, Batman comics are amazing. I want to buy 100 of them. I don't think you're going to have that reaction, if I'm being totally honest. I certainly didn't when I read it. But then when I read The Killing Joke and I read The Long Halloween and Batman Hush, and I was like, holy shit. You know, so everybody's different. Some people say Batman Year One is the best comic ever written. I'm like, you know, it's okay. I give it a 7 out of 10. But I give some of those other graphic novels like The Killing Joke a fucking 12 out of 10. So it's everything is subjective, and don't try to look on online lists, which I know I said I'm about to make an online list, which is true. But I wouldn't look to other people to decide what to read. Get them in order, you know, write out the canon in order. Again, like I said, start with Batman Begins, Long Halloween, Dark Victory, like go down the order and, you know, look at the plot synopses and see which story you think you would enjoy most. You know yourself better. Let's say that you're also really into the Arkhamverse and like you don't really know that much about the main Batman canon. Get some of Paul Dini's graphic novels. You know, there's a whole omnibus, an Arkham omnibus with tons of Arkham stories in it, you know. Get that. Try that. If you're really into the Arkhamverse, start there. If you're really into the Injustice universe, get the Injustice omnibus. Like, there's so many different places to start, and I don't think that other people should be able to tell you where to start. It's really a subjective opinion for you to decide, Wesley. But thank you for the question, man. Okay, next question is from Super Jam, the Jam of Steel. Do you know the Muffin Man? If I told you the answer to that question, I'd have to kill you, Super Jam. So I can't reveal that. Thank you. Evan Victor, do you buy CGC comics? If so, do you plan to? So this is a good question. For those of you who don't know, CGC Comics, it's basically an organization that determines the quality of comics. So if you send in a comic to them, they will rate it from a scale of 1 to 10. A 10 is a perfect comic book. And it's really difficult to get a 10. It has to be fucking immaculate, okay? And they charge you a decent amount of money. I think it's like $70 last time I checked, to rate this book. And there's, a professional analyst who really knows about comic books incredibly well and what collectors are looking for. And they're going to frame it. And in the top right, there's going to be this little number, maybe it's the top left, I can't remember, that says 9.8 or 10 out of 10. Now, with my Rebirth collection, I did a very good job. I own pretty much every issue in Rebirth, at least with the first 10 issues of every series. There were some series like, okay, after 10 issues, I'm not a fan, but there are a couple of series that I have really like every issue for. And I keep my comics in good condition. I wouldn't say any of them are 10s because it's literally, again, impossible. If I'm getting a 10, it's like you're buying it, you're instantly bag and boarding it, and you're sending it off right away. You don't even touch it, and you're picking from the 50 options on the shelf. You're looking for any like nick or scratch in the spine or in the pages or anything, and you're looking to make sure it's immaculate. You're bag and boarding it right away, and then you're sending it off, and then you might get a 10. But they're probably still going to find something wrong with it and give you a 9.8. Okay, so I have a lot of 9.4s, 9.6s in my Rebirth collection. I personally do not buy CGC comics for one simple reason, Evan, which is that I buy comics to read them. I am not a collector. I have this whole Rebirth collection again. If I were to sell it, it'd probably be worth a decent amount of money. Like I've looked at, Batman Rebirth issue 1. I have the first print of all of these. I was at the midnight launch of Rebirth. I have the first print for all of these things. And it's worth decent money. Like I could probably sell a lot of those issues for, $20, $30, some of the, number ones and all those things. I collect some issues that I really like. I've collected Batgirl New 52 issue 1. I have a bunch of copies of that, probably 5 copies of it. I've collected some issues that I'm really into, but broadly speaking, I'm not a collector. I think now that you mention this, Evan, it would be cool, I will say, to have, in my bedroom, like a whole bunch of CGCs hanging there, but it's pretty expensive. I'm not in the financial position to buy a bunch of those, to be honest with you. That's more for like really wealthy comic book fans, which I am not. So that's kind of the answer to that question, Evan. I buy comic books to read them. I'm not overly OCD about the quality, although I do take good care of them, and most of my books are 9.6 or higher. But thank you for the question, Evan. That's where I'm at. But I'm curious to know in the comments if you're watching, which I hope you are because you asked the question, what you think about these comics and if you buy CGC. Sergeant Skydiver, longtime fan of the channel, long time. So what's up, Jack? Good to talk to you, dude. What does Bruce Wayne's face look like in Arkham Asylum? His face model looks completely unlike all the other games. I think you could see that for all of them, though. Like in City, his face looks totally different from Night, and in Night he looks totally different from Asylum and all that. So, and then you look at Harley Quinn in the Suicide Squad game, and she looks completely different in all 3 of the Arkham games, but she also looks different in Suicide Squad. So you kind of just have to suspend your disbelief, Jack, but that's kind of where I'm at on that. Lucas asks, preferred release date for Gotham Knights and Hogwarts Legacy. So this was asked on January 10th, before Hogwarts Legacy was delayed. So Hogwarts Legacy is coming out in 2022. My preferred release date for Gotham Knights is the summer, but it is reasonably and realistically probably coming out in October or November, if I had to guess, Lucas. I don't want that to be the case. I want the game to come out as soon as possible, but it's probably not the case. Marvel's Reporter asks, do you think we will ever get a remaster of Arkham Origins? So this is a good question. I've debated this a lot. I think we will. I think we'll get one in 2 to 3 years. There's going to be a PS5, Xbox Series X remaster of the entire Arkham collection. They have heard us loud and clear. They know that we do want a remaster of Origins. Okay, that's just a fact. We've made that very clear. I've made it very clear. A bunch of people have on Twitter. And I think that we all were disappointed when the Virtuous remaster of the game in 2000, I guess it would be 16, I think, when Arkham Legacy or Return to Arkham came out, that it did not include Arkham Origins. So I think they've heard us loud and clear on that. I think we are going to get a PS5 Series X version of this franchise, as we should. And I think that we'll get Arkham Origins finally remastered, which would be amazing. So this might be something that we push and advocate for in another year after Gotham Knights comes out. And especially if they decide, let's say, the second WB Montreal game is an Arkham game, then we're definitely going to get it too. So that would be very wise. They'd make a bunch of money on the new Arkham game. They'd make a bunch of money on the remaster. So I would be surprised if they didn't do that, if I'm being completely honest with you. Sorry, I was just checking my settings there. We're good. Okay, Steven Purcelli Jr. What 3 DLC characters would you like to see in Gotham Knights? Have a great day, Kobe. Thank you, Steven. So DLC characters, number 1, Azrael. Number 2, Catwoman. Number 3, maybe Huntress? You know, there are a bunch of different ones that you could choose from. I'm trying to narrow it down to 3. That's the tricky part. You could also do like a Stephanie Brown. You could do Cassandra Cain. You could go in that direction. Azrael seems to really stick out to me as somebody who I would want number 1. And then Batman, obviously, actually. So, okay, I'm narrowing it down. Batman, Azrael, Catwoman. Like, we got to pick the 3 most iconic. Azrael, Batman, Catwoman. So those are my picks, Steven. Let me know your guys' pick in the comments below. Kylie, do you think we will get a trailer for Snyder Cut at the Super Bowl? I just read an article today that they're evidently not doing Super Bowl trailers. That could be wrong, though. I don't know. I feel like that can't be true. Probably not a Snyder Cut trailer. What it's going to be is probably an HBO Max sizzle reel trailer that's promoting all the stuff going on at HBO Max, like Space Jam 2 with Michael Jordan. That was Space Jam 1 with LeBron James and like that type of stuff. But it won't just be Justice League. I would be shocked if it was. But that's just my thoughts, Kylie. Thank you for the question. I Like Panda Cakes asks, do you think that the Suicide Squad game will be before the events of Night? King Shark is in the game as well as rumors of Batman. Great question, Panda. I have no clue. I really don't. And I've thought about this. You know, I screenshotted your question earlier and I was thinking like, oh, I don't know. Maybe not. Like, I really don't have well-formulated thoughts on it because I could see it going both ways. To me, it would be like, if this story does take place before the events of Night, I would love that because Batman would be in the fray somehow. Maybe Batman would be trying to fight Superman and we get a Batman v Superman, or Batman teams up with the Suicide Squad like he did in Rebirth, which happened for a bit. That would be amazing. If Batman somehow shows up to fight Superman and we get a Batman v Superman plotline in the Suicide Squad game, sign me the fuck up. So, Panda, I don't know whether he will or not be. I can just say I hope that it does take place before the events of Night so that we can get that storyline. Llama asks, Suicide Squad killed the Justice League or Gotham Knights? You can only pick one. Llama, this is a pretty easy question for me because I have been so invested in the W Montreal game for so long, and because it pertains to the Bat Family. You know, nothing against King Shark or Harley Quinn or Deadshot. I love all those characters too, but Barbara Gordon's my favorite comic book character of all time. Nightwing is in my top 5. Red Hood's in my top 10. Tim Drake is cool. I don't mean to leave him out, but he's not quite in my top 10, but I do really like Tim Drake. Anyway, just when you like, none of the characters in Suicide Squad are in my top 10 favorite comic book characters of all time. Again, I like Deadshot. I like Harley Quinn, but they're not top 10. It's not like number 1, like with Gotham Knights. So with Barbara Gordon. So yeah, to me, Llama. Thank you for the question, but I am going to say that, that Gotham Knights is the game that I would pick if I could only pick one. Joaquin Fernandez. What's up, man? Longtime fan of the channel. Great to see you. Asking a question here for the Q&A. What is your prediction for the story and character interactions between the Bat Family for Gotham Knights? Well, kind of going back to the prior question, I'd love to see a Battle for the Cowl situation. I think it's going to be kind of a thriller detective story. I hope that there's a lot of interaction between the characters. One thing that's concerned me is this whole thing with co-op and how if you're playing single player, there is no, dual play or anything. There's no AI dual play. So presumably if you're playing the game solo, there's no like dialogue between characters in the map with you. It's just only over the intercom with Alfred and that type of thing. So not a huge fan of that. We'll have to see how that plays out. But thank you for the question, Joaquin. Warrior of Justice 95. Do you believe, Mr. Slick, Master of the Moths, we will get new villains for Gotham? Or will it be the same like usual because WB Montreal wants to play it safe since Batman won't be in it? Okay, so I understand your question. Is it going to be new villains and experimental villains, or is it going to be like Mr. Freeze and Killer Croc and Deathstroke and Deadshot because Batman won't be in it, so they want to overcompensate with the villain roster? Well, we've already seen Mr. Freeze, but going back to the canceled WB Batman game, that had a lot of zany, weird-ass villains. Like, it had fucking Grandma White Rabbit in it. It had Mad Hatter. It had like a bunch of off-the-wall C-list, D-list villains. The only one they didn't have was Condiment King. But besides that, they had pretty much all of the fucking weird ones. So my thought, I'm hesitant to say because I don't know. I really don't. I'm hesitant to, I think it's going to be a mixed approach. Like I think there's going to be weird ones that are off the wall like C and D list. And I think that there's going to be more stereotypically traditional Batman villains. So that's my thought on Warrior Justice. Robert Kelly, thank you for the question. Do you think the reason why the Nightwing movie is put on hold is because the Matt Reeves children? Oh, I already answered that earlier. Thank you, Robert. I do remember that one. I love the direction that we're going in with DC. But if we don't get a sequel for the Snyder Cut, people have to expect it and move on. Agreed? Let me read this again. I love the direction that we're going for DC. But if we don't get a sequel for the Snyder Cut, people have to accept it and move on. Agreed? Also, do you think it's possible we get a Batman Who Laughs movie? So, Batman Man Who Laughs, probably not. I don't think we'll see a movie for that in the next 10 years. Sorry, Robert, but that's just my thoughts on it. Sequel for Snyder Cut. There's not going to be a sequel for the Snyder Cut, I don't think. Unless it, like, receives universal praise, which I don't think it will. I think it will I think it'll have a mixed critical reception at best, if I'm being honest with you. But there's going to be a lot of cool stuff in there for comic book fans, so I hope it does well. Bob Starr, where did you get your info about W Montreal's second game in development? So that game was canceled, by the way. So the game that I had information on, the Batman game, was replaced with Gotham Knights. So, yeah, it's not the second game, that it was replaced with this game. And I'm not going to say where I got it from. It was nobody that works at W Montreal. Nobody there is, nobody there is, like, dishing me information or anything. It's not like that. They're all very loyal to the project and everything. And again, I've made comments in the past that, in a sense, I do feel bad about revealing that. I've talked about this a lot, and it's something I've been thinking about a lot, where as a YouTuber, you're put in a precarious position where you are incentivized to do things like this. You're incentivized to do a number of things. One, clickbait. I'm very critical of Emergency Awesome and other YouTubers, but he's just playing the game. Do we hate the player or do we hate the game? The game is the YouTube algorithm incentivizes a high click-through rate, which means you want as many people that are served your video to click on it as possible. That means if you're going to be a really successful YouTuber, you have to clickbait, period, end of story. With very few exceptions. Like Penguin Zero doesn't clickbait, but he's like a comedian YouTuber and he's developed such this huge cult following. So like it's possible, but it's rare, especially if we're looking at the comic book space where it's like everybody's competing for your eyes and attention. This video is not going to get as many views as a video that's like Gotham Knights, Easter egg, Suicide Squad reveal. Like it's just the name. It's the name of the game. It's how the game works, right? So do we hate the player or do we hate the game? And I've made a number of decisions, like, for instance, the entire plot of Batman Telltale Season 2 was leaked to me, like, months before the day it was announced. I got a DM from somebody that worked on the game at Telltale Games who leaked the entire fucking thing to me. It was like, this happens, and this happens, and this happens, and I'm like, Jesus. So I stopped reading after the first line because I was really looking forward to the game. So I would never spoil, like, the ending of one of these games. I would never spoil, like, really any insane plot details. But with that, I just felt like I had received information that there was indeed a new Batman game. Everybody was really low and feeling down as a fandom and community because people felt like it had been so many years since we had heard anything and we're never going to get a new game and we're never blah, blah, blah. And I learned that we are getting a new Batman game. And I thought that in a sense it was the right thing to do. It's tough to say if I would do it again. I really don't know. Part of me says I wouldn't because I'm a little bit older and more mature now. Like, I did that when I was a fucking kid. I did that when I was, like, 18. So I guess I was barely an adult, but not really. I was a fucking kid, dude. Like, I didn't know any better. I didn't really think out the implications of what I was doing. And part of me thinks I wouldn't do it again. If I receive any leaks and information about Gotham Knights, I probably wouldn't say anything about it, if I'm being honest, because I respect the Gotham Knights developers, and I don't want to, ruin things for them. That's kind of where I'm at on it. But Yeah, so that's the answer to your question, Bob Star, is I'm not saying. Knighthood. Will you ever make a gaming channel? I'd love to, Knighthood. That's one thing about this channel is that it's such a huge channel about Batman and DC Comics and Arkham games and Gotham Knights and everything, which is great. I love all those things. I've loved doing this video and talking about this stuff for the last, however long it's been. But I have other interests too, and I'd love to talk about those and make videos on those. So I'm curious if I made a gaming channel, if you guys would support that and enjoy that. And, if you'd like to watch me play Rainbow Six Siege or other things like that, or Cyberpunk or whatever, then let me know. Nicholas says, I'm Batman. Thank you for the question, Nicholas. Arkham J81, longtime supporter and fan of the channel. Really appreciate you, Arkham J. What are you most excited for with Rocksteady Suicide Squad? I know we haven't seen much, but do you think it will be as good as the Arkham trilogy? I'm most excited for the co-op play. The fact that I can play with Salvage and Jake and Dustin and play with my friends. That's going to be fun. It almost feels like it's going to have a Left 4 Dead vibe to it, right? Where it's you're playing with 3 other people against these hordes of enemies and you do missions together. I'm really looking forward to it. The thing about Rocksteady is they are masters at gameplay. Gameplay is their bread and butter, more than anything. I think we saw with Arkham Knight that, when it comes to narrative, they're growing as a studio. They're going to keep getting better and better. This game will definitely have a better plot than Arkham Knight, if I had to guess. And Arkham Knight didn't have a bad plot. It just wasn't great compared to the other ones. But Rocksteady are masters at gameplay. That's what they do. They're kind of similar to Insomniac in some senses. There are a lot of parallels to the way in which they approach game development. With Ratchet and Clank, with Insomniac and Spider-Man PS4, the gameplay is going to be smooth as hell. It's going to be great. Way better than Marvel's Avengers. So I'm really looking forward to it, Arkham J. I cannot wait for Suicide Squad. Jamie asks, who is the best girlfriend in the world? Okay, that question is from my girlfriend's friend. So yeah, she already knows what I would say to that. And I don't know why she asked, because what the fuck? I only have one. Imer Gaming YouTube. So we all know who you were most excited to play with in Gotham Knights, but who are you most excited to play in with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League? Great question, Imer Gaming. I think Deadshot, if I had to guess. Of course, we haven't seen the gameplay for any of them, so I could see King Shark and be like, holy fuck, that looks fun. But, my thought is, again, as many of you know, I come from a competitive Call of Duty background. I love playing tournaments for Call of Duty. I'm big into first-person shooters, Rainbow Six Siege and Call of Duty and all that type of stuff. So those are my types of games that I like. And Deadshot obviously seems to be most in line with that type of gameplay. So I think I'll be best with Deadshot out of the 4, if I had to guess. So I'll probably enjoy him the most. Harley Quinn could be fun. King Shark looks a lot of fun too. We'll see. Mr. J86, also a long-time subscriber to the channel. What would your pitch be for a Star Wars story? It can be a movie, game, show, whatever. Ooh, this is a good question, Mr. J. I like this. So, when it comes to a game, I think a Clone Wars game where you're playing as a clone would be a lot of fun. I also think any Clone Wars game where you're playing as a Jedi and a clone, any mix. Okay, here's how I do it. I just thought of this right now. I'm just going off the top of my head. So, I would make a Clone Wars game that follows the perspectives of multiple people. So I would make one where you follow the perspective of a clone who's just in a clone army commanded by Captain Rex or Commander Cody, Commander Rex, whatever. And then I'd make, you follow maybe one of the well-known Jedi. It could be Obi-Wan or that type of thing if you wanted to go that way. Or you could do Kaya Dai Mundi, or you could do Plo Koon, or you could do one of the, B-list Jedis from the Clone Wars era. Okay. And then on top of that, I would also maybe follow... That's probably the main two. I'd follow a clone and a Jedi, and I would switch between perspectives in a game. That'd be a lot of fun. I would love to do that. It's, I guess, kind of similar to what they did with the Battlefront 2 story, but not really. The Battlefront has been a whole fucking flop, man. If you put me in charge of that series, I could make it a lot better than what it's been, I think. Daniel needs Gotham Knights now. Enter official. If they add DLC playable characters to Gotham Knights after launch, what characters would you want to add? Maybe I answered that question earlier, but thank you, Daniel. And if you watched earlier, then I did answer that. Of course, you didn't know that when you asked on January 10th that another person asked that, but yeah. Okay. GVIYT. Do you think Rocksteady is going to be able to make a fun, unique storyline, even though they're basing the game off of a concept we've seen multiple times in the past, with Brainiac invading Earth and a small squad to take him on? Any theories what they do? Well, yeah, but typically when Brainiac invades, it's the Justice League. It's like typically 7 Justice League members that are fighting Brainiac. This is a totally different story, so I'm not really buying into the idea that this is something we've seen before. We've never seen the Suicide Squad be forced to take out Brainiac. Actually, we have. That's a lie. We have seen that. But I'm not arguing that it's like never, or it's going to be bland or stale. Like, we haven't seen it so many times, like Batman's parents getting shot in an alleyway, that we're going to be like, oh my God, this again? I mean, that's my thought on it. But thank you for the question. Another question from Wesley. What would be your number one tip for college? I think I answered that from you, Wesley. I think you asked college and career tips, but yeah, I will say, going back on what I said about like investing and all that, I would say that having time to have fun is good too. College should be a fun time. You should make friends, socialize, make connections, and try to enjoy yourself while also staying focused on your goals, getting good grades, that type of thing, because it will be important later. Another question from Wesley. What would be your personal list of your favorite Batman comic runs to get into? I think that all of the main Batman graphic novels are essential. Batman Hush, Long Halloween, Dark Victory, Batman Year One, even though I said it was overrated, but I still think it's important to read. Dark Knight Returns is a really important one to read. I think that also when it comes to comic book runs, Legend of the Dark Knight is a good historical one to get into. It's a little bit dated, I guess you could say, but pretty evergreen. I think that the New 52 Scott Snyder run is really important. Batman Rebirth is hit or miss. Some points it's really good, some points it's not so good. The main thing is in the late 90s, early 2000s when Chuck Dixon was writing The Bat Family. It was incredible. So go back and read some of those comics from the golden age of Batman. Zone and Mob asks, do you believe Bane is alive in Suicide? I believe you meant to say Bane. Bane is alive in Suicide Squad. If he is, how would they retcon the Nightfall ending if it takes place after night? Did you mean to say Bane? You could have meant something else. Because I guess, yeah, Bane is dead in Arkham Knight, so I'm pretty sure that's what you meant to say. Well, going back to the prior question, this game could take place before the events of Arkham Knight, so that would explain how Bane could be in there. If not, they can't, bring people back to life. When it comes to Deadshot, they're making him look different. They obviously, race-bended him, and that's something that most fans can get past. It's not that big of a deal. It's not like you can kind of suspend your disbelief of, okay, this character looks completely different than they did earlier, but so does Harley Quinn, and so does, all those other things, as I mentioned. That's something that's not that big of a deal, in my opinion. But when you look at characters are randomly alive again that were dead, that's a problem. Then we're not in the Rocksteady Arkham universe anymore. So that's a simple question. If the game's after night, we'll probably see Bane. If it's not, then we won't. It's really that simple. Greg, what a Chad. Greg asks, what's your favorite Arkham game of all time? That would be Arkham Knight for me. I know that Arkham Knight has the most flaws probably out of all of them, but it means the most to me. I've played the most hours on it. It changed my life in many ways when it comes to my YouTube channel, really blew up my YouTube channel and put me in the position that I'm in right now. And my hype, that was my most anticipated game of all time. I was unbelievably excited, and even though some aspects of it were disappointing, it was an incredible game, and I love the game to this day. My favorite Batman moment in any media is the ending of The Killing Joke. I will explain why that is in my video later, so I'm not going to spoil that, but that is my favorite moment. Do you believe that Robert Pattinson could leave a legacy behind in Reeves' universe in the same way Bale did? Oh, absolutely. Especially because Robert Pattinson is getting a trilogy. So I definitely think that not only can he will. Every person who plays Batman leaves a profound legacy. Some people are worse than others, but I think that everything we're seeing is that Pattinson will be great. Can we play Gotham Knights when it releases? Yes, we can. That sounds great. We'll do that. What is your release date expectation? This is the last question of the Q&A, by the way. What is your release date expectation, and when do you think Batman will be playable after the campaign? Release date expectation is October, November. I believe Batman will only be playable if the execs really push for it. I think that Gotham, the developers have made it clear they don't want him in the game. Because once Batman's in, then nobody's going to want to play Batgirl or Robin. Everyone's going to want to play Batman. But it would be fun to do Batman and Red Hood together. That's something we couldn't even do in the Arkham games. So I don't know. If the sales aren't good, then they're pulling out Batman. They will, 100%, to make money. If the game sells well, they might not. So we'll have to see. My feeling is it's kind of like 50-50 whether we'll get them. Okay, guys, that is the Q&A. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the video. And if you enjoyed this commentary, be sure to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, and also become a member. For only $5 a month, you get a members-only video every single Sunday. And I look forward to seeing you guys in that Sunday-only video to all of my members. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in the next video. And then I enjoyed this video, by the way. I hope you guys enjoyed it too, but we'll do a Q&A again soon. Okay, thank you guys. See you in the next video. Peace out.